y'all do? What do you do at the beginning of your podcast? Y'all have like a way you like get your levels set, or
We just
Not really.
say welcome to Hoary Marmot.
I get everybody to talk while we're setting all that up.
We're talking.
Montana's only comedy podcast.
Yeah,
You
this
know
is
that.
we're so fast and loose with this one, but I love it. We are with Tripp Fuller.
You put a D on the end
I
of
did,
it.
yeah, Fuller.
All right.
The super fast and loose. We're with Tripp Fuller of Homebrewed Christianity podcast, and also one of our very longtime friends. He's probably, I would say, my favorite friend to drink beer with.
Thank you.
So it's appropriate.
A lot of experience.
Yep.
That we are drinking beers from
Thank
Go
you.
Brewing that neither of us have ever tried before. This is a non-alcoholic beer. And we're going to talk to
That's
Tripp
why I have a cup of whiskey.
about why he is here in the Rocky Mountains, because he's going to Targhee from here in Bozeman.
Correct.
There we go. How long have you had your podcast?
Since 2008.
It's a long time.
Yeah. I used to have hair.
I'm going to spill my drink.
My hair's thinned since then. I made
I haven't
offspring.
noticed. Yes.
I didn't have children then.
And the thrust of the podcast is process theology, essentially.
Well, I started it because when most people hear the word Christianity, they think it's about as gross, tasteless, and useless as when people say beer and think of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah.
Right, Pabst Blue Ribbon, I guess, won a ribbon hundreds of years ago. But if any kind of tradition that's trying to orient lives towards wisdom, truth, and beauty keeps doing the same thing in every generation, then it kind of gets flat, tasteless, and useless. So the idea was you introduce people in each episode to different scholars across different disciplines, and then you brew your own faith. And this was like right around the time craft beer kicked off and homebrewing was a thing, and we've obviously homebrewed together.
Sure. And
So-
you were also on the leading edge of that sort of podcast movement as it became a thing.
Yeah.
You were riding that wave.
My best friend then, Chad, was like, I used to use rewritable discs. Do you remember those things?
Oh, yeah.
And put interviews
CDRW.
with the people for our beer and theology group at a pub because no one read the book. And I got pissed. Everyone else had already had 2 beers before I finished explaining a book they didn't read. So I was like, I'm going to interview them and put it on a rewritable disc. And Chad goes, you should use a podcast. And I was like, what's this? And he said, Kevin Smith has one.
That's
And
all you
then
needed to hear.
I was like,
Wow.
game on.
Kevin Smith fan, this guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cheers. Which one are we drinking?
This is the amber.
Amber. Is this gluten-free?
It's alcohol free.
I know, but Michelle has
I
to
thought
worry
you-
about the gluten
Wait,
factor.
go
I
around,
think
go
that
around
there
the back.
is one
There's
that
something that said here.
there's one that is gluten-free. I don't think it's this
Crafted
one.
without gluten. This one.
See, it's crafted without gluten.
It tastes
Caramely.
yeah, beerish. It's really good.
It's like it's a beer because it is one.
It is a beer. You're telling me that.
It's
Yeah.
made
Okay.
with millet. It's made with millet, oats, corn, hop, yeast, ashwagandha, and L-theanine.
All right. Amber is not my favorite style, but I like this beer. It goes down. It's nice and light bodied.
I'm
You're
wearing
going.
a non-alcoholic
Michelle
hat,
looks weird
as
in her
Tripp
hat
likes
on
to.
top of
Yeah.
the headphones.
Uh-huh.
You're going to Ort Fest? Is that what it is? OrtCon?
OrtCon.
OrtCon.
Open and relational theology. So it's like
A little too close to OrcCon. We know it.
because you go cosplaying.
No. I just I'm a fan of orcs. I feel like they're
How could you not
underground
be?
Like
creatures.
what
Cute,
kind
cuddly,
of orcs? Like from
slimy.
Mordor?
Best.
Yeah, totally. Like the
Yeah,
gross, evil-looking, nasty.
But not like the
ones.
Uruk-hai of Saruman, the white who fell from grace after.
We can't go too deep into your Lord of the Rings shtick. Our
Can't
fan
we?
base is.
We're
I don't know.
non-alcoholically drunk. I feel like we can go deeper.
If so, here's a question: if a Hobbit was picking one of these beers, because there's quite a few hoppy ones, it would either be the amber or the pale ale.
All right, so we're on to the pale
Like
now.
I had him near greeted tonight. It was lovely.
And let's get back to why is OrtCon not OrcCon in Grand
Well, there's
Targhee?
not orcs there, but open and relational theology. Open, like some people imagine God's relationship with the world as outside of time, and others God as experiencing duration and time. So open and relational theologies, which are connected to process philosophies, they cross different religious traditions. So everyone there will be from different religious traditions, or there's like secular, open, relational philosophers. will think that the world is open, and so your agency matters in shaping the future, and that every moment we receive the past and the complex relations, and what you contribute through your agency shapes what goes forward. Those that are theists, open and relational theists, think that love is primary, and so openness and the riskiness of other people having agency is a part of the potential or possibility of love. And so the mystery of God is a mystery of unending love. And so you'll have philosophers, theologians, and such from different religious traditions. There's a few kind of post-religious thinkers.
Where do you fall on that spectrum? Who's right? Who's wrong? Is anybody so far removed from the reservation?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm judgmental.
Well,
so am I
everyone
wrong?
is. It's just what you do with it, you know. Judgment is an essential part of every moment. Otherwise, how would you evaluate the possibilities before you?
Okay.
I'm really judging both of you guys right now, actually.
You know what I'm judging? The quality of this pale ale.
How about that?
Look at that transition.
It's actually not so bad.
This is much closer to like my style.
I think a
obviously.
hobbit would drink this.
This is
I like
great.
this. I can taste the buckwheat. There's buckwheat
There's
in
buckwheat
this.
in
And
it.
I love buckwheat flavored things.
I never have had an encounter with buckwheat.
I'm not getting any buckwheat off this thing.
He's not my favorite rascal.
It's okay, then. It doesn't matter.
I like this one. This is the Freedom Cali Pale.
Yeah, this
crafted
one
without
tastes more like
gluten.
beer to me.
All right.
I
Sign me up.
started drinking non-alcoholic beer because I only drink alcohol twice a week.
Yeah.
As I'm sure everyone watching this can tell, they're like, obviously the guy's felt.
Yeah. Lifts nonstop. Gym 4 hours a day.
You and I both have been on a roller coaster journey when it comes to weight.
Yeah.
So
When one of us is just
the two of
one
you
of us is a
together
bigger
were on
roller coaster.
quite the roller coaster.
we're a bad influence on each other.
Joe's biggest days where he was pushing bra. He was about to need a bra, training one starting at least. When he was in those days was when he was brewing beer with you at night and going to Taco Bell afterwards. And in the mornings,
Oh, the
when I
shame.
took the trash out, I was like, "Who went to Taco Bell last night?" And Joe's like,
Okay, you want to know the moment I knew that the Garagers, Garage Plus Ragers with
Yeah.
baby monitors,
That was
got
my-
out of hand is when
my term.
we realized neither one of us could go to Taco Bell. But I thought some of my youth that have driver's license are probably awake and would take us to Taco
That
Bell.
is
And
shameful.
they want to get to go to see a Tosh episode when they graduate high school. So we used a 16-year-old to take our drunk asses to Taco Bell.
Wow, I'm glad we're putting this out into the public
You
sphere.
get to
I
edit
never
Thank you,
knew this.
Tripp.
I never knew
No,
this.
this was a confession.
Oh.
We were confessing.
This is our moment to come clean. Michelle, what do you
you
need to
need-
get off your chest? Come on.
I need 3 Hail Michelles, and right, is that what you do in confessionally? 3 Hail Marys,
Yeah.
but 3 Hail Michelles, and go forth and sin no more. Isn't that what you say?
I think that sounds right. Something with rosary beads.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this one
Mardi
you're
Gras
pouring?
beads. Though,
This is
my
a tropical IPA. Tropical
Tropical
IPA.
IPA. Okay.
Did you?
Hurry, Michelle.
Do you remember that time? This is fun just because I don't have to edit this. Of all the stories I could bring up,
I'm leaving everything. This is that's the joy I think of this format. Whereas normally it's a little bit tighter. Let's go for it. Talk about it.
well, and we'll have to ease in. You know, after the alcohol hits. Oh wait, these
put
are
me on
non-alcoholic beers.
think
We don't
That's
have any
delicious.
excuse.
You guys, I'm not getting mango and peach. Wait.
Are you not?
As it left my palate,
This is super fruity.
I got
and-
some mango.
Yeah.
You didn't?
I didn't until I swallowed it.
It's very prominent. This is basically juice that we're drinking right
This
here.
I was
even
trying
got
to
a-
let
look,
it sit on my palate.
Silver medal.
This got a
It's an
silver.
award winner.
Wow.
Is there a non-alcoholic champagne? Because this would make a killer mimosa. Oh, don't blend.
You just put the wrong beer in.
This was a tropical.
No, you didn't have it yet.
You haven't had it yet. Somebody.
What did I get? The pale ale in with the tropical
Yeah.
now? Michelle.
Tropapel.
And this is the thing that I need to go to confessional
lady in the
for.
frumpy
I'm
hat.
Sorry.
Has, done me dirty.
I have
Here, you
I
can
have
try
this
the
hat
right-
on. Number one,
You
I'm
can
sick
try
of
the-
seeing women with big hats on. But
that one's
also I was
no gluten as well?
gardening today. I was gardening today, and I have all of the foliage in my hair.
You have foliage?
It's true.
I have foliage in my hair because
This one-
I was weed whacking all around the yard.
This
so
one does
I
have
have
barley. I think she should not drink it. It has barley. Yeah.
The tropical?
Which you didn't drink. You
haven't
just
had.
thought you drank.
I was wondering because I was like, I don't taste any mango.
But
You didn't pour me any.
that's
Not yet.
that's the thing is, she didn't taste the mango because she wasn't drinking it. We
Perfect.
drank the beer.
I have a refined palate.
and it actually
I don't know if you guys
tastes
It's
the
there.
mango.
It's very
if
much
she
there.
had said, "Whoa, this pale ale is full of fruity flavor," we'd have questions.
Yeah, well, let me smell it at least.
So
But
you're
that is still the blended one.
Oh, I really
You can
smell
smell
the mango.
this.
yeah.
Okay,
You're-
but I smelled the mango. That's even stronger mango.
It's actually not bad blended with the pale. I feel like I'm just getting non-drunk. But
There is 0.5, so if
I'm
you
getting
did have a
chocolate
problem,
wasted.
I need
What
to
was
know.
that movie where the kids were the grown-up movie? You know the grown-up movie?
Oh, yeah.
Where all the people that made
Grown-ups.
movies in their 20s when we were in our 20s that were
Sandler
funny.
and
Yeah,
Spade
yeah.
and Chris Rock, all
And
those
then
guys.
they were
Yeah.
telling stories, and their kids were there, and they were like, "Yeah, we got so wasted." And they were like, "What's wasted, Mommy?" You know when you
Have
eat
too much
a lot
ice
of
cream.
ice cream,
Yeah.
and then one of the kids is like, "I'm gonna get chocolate wasted."
I mean,
You also teach at a seminary. You live in North Carolina.
Yeah.
How did
that's a mosquito. You don't want that. Sorry.
how did you start down this journey of theology and wanting to be a student of Jesus, a student of the church, and of theology?
So, my parents, if you ask good questions, gave you a book, and then after you read it, we'll talk about it. And I just had those kind of questions rather early on.
Yeah.
So it was always kind of an intellectual fascination of sorts.
What do you remember? What was like a formative book that you remember reading?
Well, the
that
biggest
set you off?
the thing where if you ask my parents, like when they knew, in 5th grade, it was Holy Week, leading up to Easter,
yeah.
and I read all 4 Gospels, what happened as last week, and made a graph type chart of what happened, and realized he didn't even die on the same day in them, and in Gospel of Mark, Jesus is sweating blood. My God, let this cup pass of me. On the cross, all he says is, "Why have you forsaken me?"
Yeah.
That kind of thing. In Matthew,
That's Luke that he says that
and
in?
Mark.
Mark.
He
Okay,
says-
got it.
in Matthew, there are zombies after he dies. All these undead come up and walk around. And you're like, why did you cut this shit out of the other 3? And then he says, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And then proceeds to say, or the text echoes the psalm that line's from, which has a resolution, right? So it's existential angst. In Mark, he sounds like, "I'm dying and I don't know if my dad's real." In Matthew, you echo the rest of the psalm where there's a resolution. Luke, completely different stuff goes on. And in John, he's in charge of the whole thing. They come to arrest him in John. He's not sweating blood, asking his friends to pray for him. They walk up and they're like, "Well, where is Jesus?" And he says, "I am," like God. And they all fall over. And then in John, he just gets up on the cross and says, "It is finished." Peace, dots his head.
So
So he's
many
in charge.
alternative endings.
So what
I would've
happens
been in
and
that,
when, I
Zack
just
Snyder
called my
would go
parents
nuts
in
for this.
and said, "My Bible's broken." They need an editor. Have you considered Jesus having an existential crisis, not knowing if his dad is real, all the way to in John, he's in charge of the whole thing. Cutting ears off, his disciple cuts the ear off, he just puts it right back on. And they were like, "No, that's how it's supposed to be." And I was like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, they don't canonize these as literal histories. They're telling you a story." And I'm like, "Who told us this? When you're in charge?" My dad was a minister. I'm like, "You're supposed to let people in on this." And they're like, "You're in 5th grade. 5th graders are not supposed to notice this." And I'm like, "I made a chart." And I just felt good later in
The
life.
Bible needs an editor, people.
Yeah, because a lot of times when Baptists make charts, it involves foreign policy. So this one was just about what happened at the end of his life. It didn't have anything to do with the Middle East and Russia.
Yeah.
And so it was just after that, my dad gave me one of his books from when he was in grad school on the historical Jesus and how the canon developed. And I was like, "This is fascinating." Then in middle school, I was like, "Why are we born to suffer and die?" And they're like, "Do you want to read The Existentialist?" And that kind of set me off. And then it was like, "How do you make money as a musical theater and philosophy and religion major?"
So I have a question.
Start a podcast.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know that it has an answer.
So it's Oklahoma.
We're on grapefruit IPA
Oh,
right now, by the
Oklahoma,
way.
so-
Speaking of grapefruits, speaking of just fruits in general,
You can't have that one. Sorry.
I'm allergic.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'll continue this. They want to put the Bible in schools. Correct. They're trying to. It probably
At
won't
least
happen.
the 10 Commandments.
Okay. Well, they were talking about teaching the Bible in
Yeah.
school. Are they
think
just
they're-
saying 10 Commandments?
There is
Wasn't
a
there a
movement
state
to
that
add.
just put them all on?
Yeah, maybe Florida,
It's one of those red states where like we're just putting it in all the classrooms.
Louisiana. Yeah, I think so.
But Oklahoma wants to teach the Bible in
Yeah.
school.
Oh, okay.
Which I think, first of all, anybody involved in pedagogy is going to be very angry because we're already busy enough. It's another. I got it. Second of all, what a terrible thing to ask a teacher to do, even if that teacher's a Christian, even because that is such. There's an interpretation that you have to talk
Yeah.
about with your kids, and that's theology, and they're not going to have time to do that. They're literally just going to be saying like, hey, kids, you can't learn about gay rights or anything like that, but let me tell you about Sodom and Gomorrah and delve into that for 5 seconds and then go home. Do you know what I mean? What do you think about that? How would the Bible ever be taught in school normally?
It's actually, it's taught in school in like all of Europe. It's just taught as literature and in religious studies because
Makes
of the
sense.
separation of church and state in America, precisely because there's a segment of religious population that does not want the way they treat scripture is as
Sonny,
if
go home.
it's inherently because it's an inerrant or infallible text to teach critical reflection or the history behind it and all that is problematic. So the moment it shows up in a classroom, you're going to be having sides taken.
Right.
And so like when we were in Scotland, our kids you have religious education as part of the curriculum, but that's so that you actually understand all the world's religions, because 97% of the people on our globe practice one of them in some way.
Yeah. I think
So understanding them is one thing, but even
But why
take
not
the
the
Sodom
Quran?
and
Why
Gomorrah
not the
thing.
Torah? And
Ezekiel says what the sin of Sodom was treating foreigners well and not taking care of the poor.
Right.
So honestly, if
A lot
we're
of people
going to
take that out
introduce
of
the Bible,
context.
would we introduce the fact that should you find out that you've stolen something and called it legal, that you have to pay them back threefold? That's in the Bible. Do we want to redistribute land so everyone can work land and pay for their own and have the dignity of work and feed their family? God said to do that. Do we want to outlaw interest for anyone that's working class? If you charge interest on a loan for anyone that's working class, God says you should get stoned. I mean, this is why you should just never take people seriously that are Americans, namely ones that have to pay taxes, that they want to be held responsible for the Bible. They don't. They say they're biblical is a master signifier, which is like a philosophical way for it, saying a concept that triggers identity with no content, because the content's unrelated to the Bible.
Right.
God takes sides in the Bible with those that were oppressed and said, let my people go, and Pharaoh and his friends go for a bath. Right? God takes sides with the crucified and not the one building crosses. You can't be the biggest cross builder in the world, us, and be like, we're going to enforce everyone to do
Yeah.
this. Like, it is so entirely problematic. So the thing that drives me nuts is it's a culture war issue. It has nothing to do with learning scripture. And the scripture, the stories of scripture, there are two religious traditions that hold them, and the narratives are in three. And so there are more Muslims that believe in the virgin conception than there are Christians.
What do you mean by the narratives are in three?
Like in the Quran, most of the narratives, so all of the characters in the Hebrew scriptures and in Christians are in the Quran.
Oh.
So like if you talk about Abraham,
Right.
he's in all three.
It gets repeated.
Jesus is in all three, he's in the Christian scriptures and
Okay.
in the Quran. So, like, if you're teaching that text, let's say you're just talking about Moses,
Right.
he's like a greatest hit in three religious traditions.
Okay.
What do you do with it? They're all going to be in the class, and even Christians can't even agree on how we read it and interpret it. And Christians have a history of reading Jewish scriptures and then becoming anti-Semitic that we're trying to get over. So then you probably don't want to read it the only way Gentiles read it. So it's a complicated thing. And I think of religion as like nuclear fusion. It can be a wonderful, clean source of energy and create all these amazing things, or it can nuke junk.
It can kill you, yeah.
And when it gets leveraged for ugly means, just like nuclear energy, religion is ugly. When it's leveraged for clean energy, you're like, this is great.
It's gorgeous, yeah. It makes sense.
Playing culture wars by shoving religion down your throats in a culture space is...
Yeah, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Problematic.
As a Christian, I think as a Christian is used very loosely.
And it's like one of those things where, like, do you want the state? If we said, "Hey, America is the most multi-religious country in the world," we should have everyone when they graduate understand the beauty, complexity, and conversations of all the religious traditions in America. And that means they should get to read everyone's sacred text and learn how to read it well. That's a very different thing than, let me insert one or two passages from my religion and pretend the only way I read it's the only way anyone in our tradition does. Because...
And cherry pick it.
Yeah. Barack Obama taught Sunday school. So, you can't, like, pretend like the people that thought he was a Muslim are secretly going to insert the Bible, and the only thing they really mean by it is, like, their version of it.
Yeah.
All right, we are going on to one of my favorite styles here, the hazy IPA. You like it, I like it. I know Michelle just loves it when I drink these. Yeah, this is another one you can't try.
Get
I'm sorry.
The old fruit breath. So I like to tell him.
How dare you?
And like even after he brushes his teeth, I'm just like, yeah.
All right, let's bring the conversation back a little bit to our region.
But thank you.
Why is OrtCon at Grand Targhee? Why is Targhee a good place for your type of theological meetup?
Well, I mean, anytime you get together where it's people across different disciplines and traditions and stuff, and what the things you hold in common is an orientation to the world that's grounded in kind of love, justice, relationality, and such, and then you're bringing these different people together, doing it in a space where it's really hard not to be wowed, right, just by like the general beauty of it, have all the opportunities of engaging in nature and stuff, and like a lot of times in conferences, especially ones with academics, it's real easy. You come and like you do your paper thing, you maybe see some other people or what, but you have the same temptation everyone has to opt out, go to your phone or whatnot. But when you're in like a beautiful place and then the schedule's built where like only half the day you're doing anything, the other half you're just hanging, then you have conversations where you look people in the eyes and then you then start talking
against a beautiful backdrop. And
yeah. And then sometimes...
I've had some great conversation in dark bars, okay? But the backdrop helps.
Yeah.
It makes you want to be outside and enjoying shared experiences.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think if one of your goals is for everyone to kind of talk about whatever their current research projects are, to then you connect with people that run kind of maybe like a different science lab that then working on this psychological science and forming a virtue projects, and where you have scholars from these different areas, you kind of want everyone to share their stuff, but you also want to create space that's set up for them to actually hang out.
Right.
And then new projects come up. So this event is very fun because there's, I think, 6 of us that do like a keynote talk, but then there's probably 20 people that do these 8-minute, here's what my current research project thing's on. And then you go to these tables and you meet up with people that have shared research interests, and you kind of all share around that topic. And then it's set up to then, you're going to lunch, or you're going to dinner. So the event structured where you use, you're going to lunch, or here's this hike, where you go out and do the kind of experiences of Targhee.
But the conversation can continue the whole time.
So it's kind of
Like
structured.
us, when we need to have our major discuss, when Joe and I've had like major discussions or things we need to hash out, we like going to a buffet because
it's true.
Like, go to a buffet.
It's the best place to have an argument.
An argument or a discussion or like a decision.
I'm gonna go get some more nacho cheese.
Exactly. hold that thought.
Exactly.
I'm
You're
get some
you're
sweet
constantly
and sour soup.
getting
right
up,
now.
and now I get to mull over things while I'm getting my next course, and I come back and I'm a little bit cooler, and I'd say things in probably a nicer way than I would.
Did y'all have K&W cafeterias in Alabama?
I don't know what that is.
Morrison's?
K&W cafeterias?
No.
I just went to
It was
Morrison's.
a North Carolina thing, but they had, soft serve machines,
Well, that's what they get. Yeah.
and I would cut the tops off the cones, so you just had the most crunchy part, and then make 6 of them. So it was just
That's
cones
genius.
full of soft serve, and just stack them up. And
What do you mean stack 'em up?
Diabolical. right
you
there.
take 6 cones, and you
You
don't
cut off the big top part.
Yeah, where it's just the super crunch part, where it's
Okay.
got it's ribbed for your crunchy pleasure.
And you would just line them up on a plate? Is that
Yeah,
what
and
you
just,
said? Okay.
you just
You
smack
said
down.
stack. I thought you were actually
You just smack them down. It's probably got 2 tablespoons of soft serve in each one. It's just, like a
packed.
little bite,
That's very
a little
fun.
bite.
Hazy's pretty good, by the way.
Bouche ice cream.
Amuse-bouche.
Amuse-bouche. Amuse-bouche.
What is your personal goal for this event? What are you hoping to either get out of it or accomplish?
Another collaboration.
Oh, well, this time I'm doing this paper I've been working on. That's kind of part in the fall. I have an audio documentary series on the rise of Nazi Germany and the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. That's like an audio documentary and book, and so it's the first time I'm talking about it.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
So I'm excited to hopefully people don't think it sucks. Even if it's not bad,
There's still
you still until you do it the first
lingering
time.
uncertainty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you said there were going to be people there that dealt in science there as well?
Like last year when I was there, that's what I did it on panpsychism. So the 3 years before we moved back to the States in Edinburgh,
Double IPA.
I was working at the University of Edinburgh, and so my teaching position was science and religion, which is mostly of my PhD stuff was related to that. And so you get in the science and religion field, a lot of times you have different science labs or researchers, and then you have people that are in some humanities when they work on grants that are these collaborative grants. So in Scotland, I was working on one on philosophy of mind, and so I was functioning as the philosopher that was involved in it, and there were 3 different labs that were working on stuff. But then once COVID started, all the labs turned into that. I'm like, don't y'all want to understand the nature of consciousness? Why are we worried about vaccines? But they were like, no, we're part of a global conspiracy, and so we're sabotaging science to something Fauci told them to do. I didn't understand it. I just didn't read the emails.
Yeah, you tend to lose the thread
it
pretty
was just-
easily on those.
So real quick, Tripp's notes on what you and I were talking about the other night, which was evolution. Where people are like either or. Either you believe in evolution or you believe in creationism. Right? You think that that's silly that we do that
Yes.
because I can explain it, but Tripp does it better.
Well, so I'll just say that the moment people find out you work at a university, and then you tell them, well, what do you teach? And you say, oh, God, science and religion. Joe, what do you think the normal responses are?
The juxtaposition of the two is
They're
confusing.
like, how do you work that out? Can you do both? Talk about a limbo game. You just hear all these things. I'm always just like, what? No. Odd fact about the history of science. Science, what came to be modern science, evolved in a Judeo-Christian context. Namely, for a lot of historical reasons, that it took thinking of one single source that's internally rational and understandable through the gift of reason that's trustworthy for science ever to emerge. That's why all the other cultures never got past a certain kind of stage of scientific reflection. And if you just read the history, they think they're discovering the mind of God, which is understood through the consistency of what came later to be called natural law.
Okay.
Right? So monotheism of the Western variety was required for modern science to emerge. Then there's this whole history of how they get alienated. But in America, you pick it up where the kind of anti-intellectual streak in America then is waking up with Darwinism, and then they go, We don't like that. And now we're going to pretend something that no one even knew existed for most of church history, called this all happened literally and historically, and then make it a cleaver to beat everyone about. So like Augustine,
Like that everything happened in 7 days.
yeah, which is
Right.
just dumb. Like very few Christians even knew that was an option to believe and argue about until Christian fundamentalists that hated science decided you had to believe it or not go to hell, which obviously is a real disappointing for the first 1,700 years of church history. Just think of all those people. Even the monks, they went to hell. They didn't even know they had to believe this thing. But like St.
Never had a
Augustine,
chance.
the most important like theologian of the church, it's not in the Bible, wrote a book called On the Literal Interpretation of Genesis, where he kind of makes fun of people that thought it was made in 6 days. He's like, that's not what it means. Literal, and this is Thomas Aquinas, the theologian for the Catholic Church, said a literal reading of Scripture is to read it as God intends it be heard in that moment. So, like, literal means like it becomes God's word by us reading it, where it orients you to your neighbor, your enemy, these kinds of things, how God wants. And so, like, the idea that the truth of something is making
absolute.
it's making a truth claim for a kind of truth that didn't exist till modernity invented it. So like if you just track the word faith until modernity meant trust. The analogies that you get from religious people about faith, it was like the normal analogy was what happens at a wedding. When you get up there and said I do to Michelle and she said I do to you, you are trusting that you're both going to keep showing up for each other, and you have no idea what that means, right? So you're like giving yourself, you're opening yourself up, you're giving yourself in this way.
I
To
never
say,
said
like,
I do.
I believe.
She did. She yelled it.
Oh. All night long. But that, like, I trust is a very different thing than saying, like, I believe and I pass a true-false test of something historically.
Blindly believe. And
it doesn't even have to be blind. Like, they'll come. That's the whole thing about shoving creationism or intelligent design in a curriculum, right? They believe that science is the real gets to decide the truth about everything.
Yeah.
And now we're going to prove that science is that our version of interpreting the Bible that no one knew for most of church history is the real true version, right? So like it flattens truth and then argues for it, and it's just kind of like a kind of like sad and depressing thing, and like inventing things for people to believe that for the most of the church history no one knew was a thing, so that then you can look like a backwards ignoramus in the public square just seems odd.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. I just feel like if the Pope is more edgy than you should just dial it back, right? The Pope's like loves science. The Pope hires more scientists than they have missionaries kind of thing. Like there's like millions of dollars of grants for science that the Vatican runs. They have multiple observatories. They're very invested in it. He regularly tells them all you should do. Like he also is like if you don't care about how your contributions to through your purchasing and how you spend your time and energy transforms the ecological situation or impacts your neighbors economically and in just ways, you should pray about it. He isn't run around going like, have you considered putting the 10 Commandments on walls and interpreting the Bible literally? Because otherwise, how will anyone ever know about Jesus? No, the only thing they're going to know is that you're an asshole. Like, he has this whole thing. He's like, take care of the planet, take care of your neighbors. By living out the love, it becomes compelling, and science is cool, and I fund it. And if you're crazier than him, you got to dial it back. That's just like a basic, like, right. He even came around.
But he does wear those weird hats. And it's like,
he even came up with a way of blessing gay unions. Like, come on. If the Pope does that and your church isn't even letting, like, women do anything.
This is our last
Thank you
beer.
for that.
It sounds like, your arguments are all very sound. I like your approach. It's not necessarily Montana's approach. We are more like build a Noah's Ark museum and maybe
You say we. There's no
force
collective
people
we.
Yours
We're
isn't
purple.
even to scale. I don't know if y'all have given him a tour of your ark, but it's not to scale. He used Legos. Can you trust it? That is the slippery slope of relativism.
It's a little
you go
people
to build
arc,
an ark,
okay?
and and Lego doesn't even have all the animals. You can't even put them all in there because, what are you going to do?
When it comes to Bible literalism, what do you have to say about
Lego Bible?
Noah's Ark.
Lego Bible is a great text. Great text.
Yeah, every time there's like a rainbow or a flood, people are like, "Oh, see."
Is it thoroughly debunked at this point?
Well, no, I mean
scientifically.
I don't know how you would even debunk it scientifically. There are rainstorms and floods, right? Has there ever been a global flood? Yeah, when everything melted. But were humans alive yet? I don't think so. But ancient Mesopotamia, there's multiple religious traditions that talk about a giant flood, right? And it's some of them are way older than the Jewish people. So the fascinating thing about the Jewish narrative of the flood is that it was not the result of God on God violence. And it was this experience of God creates the world. Humans get this responsibility and agency and screw things up so much. God made them to be icons, images of God. Mm-hmm. And then they're just killing people and being ridiculous, which obviously we've met humans. You can see this as a life. And God's I repent of this. God repents of creating it. And it's I'm going to hit the reset button with a little bath type thing.
Sure.
And so you throughout the whole Genesis 9 through 11, which is usually called the prehistory, before the call of Abraham, and you get to distinctly Jewish history.
Thanks, Chuck.
That's kind of a narrative that tells the human predicament from creation through Babel, and the fascinating thing there is that after it, the rainbow is in the Hebrew, it's God's literally hanging up the bow. That violence is not my solution to junk hitting the fan. So can you see it's God's not going to do this. See, the theory was if God's decided when junk goes bad, you don't just go kill everyone and set the things right violently.
Yeah.
Maybe you won't do it either. Right? That's what's going on after it. And then immediately what happens after it? Noah invents wine, gets naked, has some weird sexual encounters with his family members, curses one of them, and we've had a lot of baggage. Yeah, they don't put that in the kids' Bible version.
It's not in the graphic novel.
But the curse of Ham.
version.
So then Ham sees his naked and gets all whacked up. The other brothers walk backwards with a blanket to cover him up so they don't see his father naked and
some
passed
dignity.
out.
Yeah.
And then he curses.
Very much happens.
He curses Ham, and why this shows back up is in much later, once you start to have kind of the story of evolution in science and biblicist stuff up, the whole argument for slavery being natural is that slaves were the people of Ham, and Noah cursed them, and that he always had to be the servant of his brothers because he came in there and who knows what happened when he was intoxicated, but whatever it was, he cursed Ham. And then that was the text, the primary image that's being used by a lot of the Baptists when they split from the other Baptists to have a slaveholder be a missionary, what became to be the Southern Baptist Convention. A lot of Reverend Furman in South Carolina is using these texts to justify how we identify the races and having value, right? It's so Noah, it's biblical. Noah had 3 kids; they were the only humans around. And one of them did some funny business with his daddy naked after he had wine for the first time. And is it immoral if you have too much wine? You've never even had it before. Noah didn't know that you could have high-quality non-alcoholic beverages that still bring in the flavor. He didn't know about that. They hadn't even figured out this technology. Mm-hmm. But Go Brewing has. And so Noah's I'm going to curse you. And then if you're trying to figure out how is there a whole chunk of the world after you discover new worlds as a Anglo person that is just inherently not as human or valued as you, let me find a Bible passage for it. Oh, Noah cursed somebody. That's got to be at least a third of them, and then it gets picked up. Maybe it was in plantation kiddie Bibles, but
the Tripp's notes.
It's all because of that rainbow. That darn rainbow. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Oh, you heard my under the breath thing.
Nothing but evil. But if Noah had discovered this Go Brewing, things would have been a lot different.
Yeah, we would have skipped that whole
You don't wanna
problem.
get taken by a mosquito either.
So this is thank you very much to Go Brewing for giving us this experience. Thank you, Tripp, for being here. Good luck at OrtCon in Targhee, and you guys listen to Homebrewed Christianity.
Sharing is caring.
For my hat, come see us. Just for this look alone. I look beautiful. Damn it.
All right. Hopefully, one of many conversations with Tripp on our podcast.
Cheers.
It's been great. I'm sorry you didn't get to drink as many as we did, Michelle.
Well,
Fine. I got my cup.
it's just always nice for a brewer to have any that she's allowed to drink, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
You have been. If you've
And it
been
reminded
at
me-
a tasting where you don't even have one option.
It's been so
I
long
still
since,
like
since
spirits.
she's had beer.
I love a dark beer, like crazy dark.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if I can have gluten again,
Yeah.
I will drink some dark beers.
Okay.
I like those. Like a Guinness, I like a Moostrel.
Yeah, you do.
I like the Moose Roll.
Love Moostrel.
Like some imperial stouts. All right. I think we can stop now. Let's sort of let it fizzle out.